Hello, and welcome to today's live chapter reading of Notebook Mysteries, Haunted Christmas by Kimberly Mullins, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Prologue. Clink, clink, clink. The sound of heavy chains seemed to be in concert with the pounding in his head. He held his hands over his ears and huddled deeper into the bed. The clank of the chains could be heard again. Marley? He asked in a whisper and reached out a shaky hand to move the bed curtains back, revealing a dark room. Marley? He called again, louder this time. The clinking seemed to be next to him. Startled, he pulled the curtains closed and sank back on the bed. Go away, Marley. I don't want to see you. A long, raspy moan could be heard in the room, and he tentatively stuck out his head again. He regretted it immediately and screamed as the apparition flew toward him. I need to get out. He jumped out of the bed and ran to the balcony doors. You won't get me, he shouted as he jumped over the edge. Chapter 1. A few weeks later. Emma pulled the paper out of her typewriter and placed it on her desk. She opened the drawer and pulled out the files needing to be updated. They were reviewed for any errors before being filed again. It was her last assignment from Mr. Pennington before the Christmas break. Her position had started as a temporary one, but Mr. Pennington saw potential in her. In exchange for her investigations, he was teaching her how the law worked. The office would be closed after today for the holidays. Christmas is approaching quickly. It's only 5 days away, she thought. The holiday was always busy for her family because of all the additional baking. In addition to her regular jobs, she was also helping out at Cousins, the family bakery. The family party was held on Christmas Eve. Both boarding houses, family, and friends were invited to attend. Emma smiled. She was looking forward to the holidays. She pulled out her bag to check her courier route for the day. It was open on her lap, and she was reviewing the list of locations for document deliveries when a knock sounded on the door. Come in, she called absently. Ethan Worthington, the law office secretary, stepped in. Emma, you remember that favor you owe me? He asked. His tone was serious, and that got her full attention. She looked up and replied in a similar tone. I do. Ethan had helped her on a previous case, and, without him, the truth may not have been uncovered and a murderer might have gone free. She put her bag aside and watched him as he paced her small office. He finally stopped in front of her. I need you to investigate something for me at my family home. Oh, if that's all, sure, she said, looking at him closely. She wondered why this request worried him so much. No, you don't understand. This house is haunted, he said desperately. Emma looked at him in amazement. Ethan is one of the most down to earth persons I know, she thought. This isn't something he's taking lightly. She frowned at him. Haunted? Ethan, what makes you say that? He looked around, not wanting anyone who might be in the office to overhear. Can we meet after work and discuss this matter? She understood. He had responsibilities and couldn't take time out of his workday to review this with her. She pulled her notebook. When and what time would you like to meet? She asked. Can I come to the boarding house this evening? He knew her address from the files he kept on employees. She thought ahead and asked, Is 8 p.m. too late? No, he said, thinking quickly. That's fine. I'll see you tonight. He turned and left her office. A haunted house, she thought. This will be interesting. The clock bell chimed the hour. She looked toward it and thought, time is passing quickly. Gathering her things, she dropped them into her bag. She hurriedly unbuttoned the long row of double buttons on her woolen skirt. It folded over, revealing a split skirt. The dashing design had been Dora's idea to help keep it from getting caught on her bike. The bag was closed with a snap, and she made her way out to where Ethan's desk sat. Her winter things and her bike were stored in a nearby closet. She retrieved them before moving to the office entrance. Once there, she propped the bike against the door and pulled on her heavy coat, scarf, gloves, and hat. Bracing herself for the impact of the cold, she turned the knob to open the door. Ethan found his sense of humor as he watched her prepare. He called, Is that it? Any other layers to add? It's cold out here today, she explained, turning back to him. Do you have courier work this afternoon? He asked, frowning. The weather could be dangerous this time of year, and she normally stayed out all afternoon. A few engineering drawings to drop off, she confirmed. I also told Cousin I would work an afternoon shift to get some orders caught up at the bakery. Be safe. Don't take any unnecessary chances in this weather, he cautioned. I won't, she said as she took the bike by the handlebars to roll it outside onto the stoop. Once there, Emma tried to catch the breath the cold air had stolen from her. She opened her coat to let the air circulate some before buttoning it up again. The wind was brisk and would make her ride harder. The bike was lifted to her shoulder. She carried it down the stoop before jumping on it to go to her delivery locations. Her teeth were chattering and her arms numb after finishing her deliveries. The thought of the warm bakery made her pedal harder to reach her final destination. With a final push, she made it to the back door of the bakery. She ducked her head down and pulled her bike toward the door. Grasping the doorknob tightly, she pushed it, and the wind tore it out of her hands, hitting the wall with a bang. A blast of hot air accompanied the yells from all parts of the bakery. Shut the door, she heard someone yell. Hurriedly, she placed the bike on her shoulder, grabbed the door handle, and leaned on it to push it closed. I'm sorry, she called. There were some grumblings, but most of the workers had a smile for Emma. Cousin spotted her from his workstation and called out, Thanks for helping out today. He indicated where she should work with his floured hands. Your list is there, he told her. I'll get started as soon as I change, she said and made her way to the storage closet. She put her bike inside and stepped in to change into her bakery uniform. It was a white skirt with a white high necked blouse and full sleeves. There was also an apron that buttoned on. Her work skirt had also been modified to a split style similar to the kind she wore when biking and was at least 5 inches shorter than that of the other female bakers. She exited the room and made her way to her station. Pulling on the baker's hat absently, she reviewed her list. The directions says the apple cakes are to be cut into individual portions. Not difficult, she thought. I just have to make a lot of them. She finished baking and moved the cakes from the baking trays to cool. The pastry boxes were lined up for her to fill. As they cooled, she cut them into squares and moved them into the boxes. These will go out to the events scheduled for this evening, she thought. The Christmas season had started, and there were parties almost every night. Will you be able to work the rest of the week? Asked Cousin as he approached her, his calendar out and pen ready. Yes, I can. Courier work is light right now. He nodded, taking notes. Good, good. Once you get those boxed up, you may head out for the day. What time can we plan on you being here tomorrow? Let's say early afternoon for 3 hours. I have some activities that will probably take up my morning, she said, thinking about her meeting with Ethan that night. There may be some follow up to take care of. Cousin marked it down and headed back to his office. Emma cleaned up her workstation and made her way to the closet to change clothes. She called goodbye to the other bakers as she walked her bike out. It wasn't quite dark when she left, but it would be by the time she got home. She pushed herself to get there as soon as possible. There seemed to be something sinister in the cold that evening. Chapter 2. Dinner had been served and the dishes were removed from the boarding house dining room. The remaining people at the table were Tim, Dora, Emma, Jeremy, and Jake. Savannah had a play that would have her getting in late. Jake was preoccupied with a new book he had gotten. It was by Edward M. Estabrook, Photography in the Studio and in the Field. His interest in photography had expanded to reading books about new developing technologies. Tell us who's coming over tonight and why, Dora demanded. Emma had commented when she got home that there would be a visitor that evening. Ethan Worthington, the secretary at Mr. Pennington's office, has a favor to ask, Emma explained. Do you have any idea what the favor entails? Asked Jeremy, settling back in his chair with his coffee cup in his hands. Yes, she said. She wasn't sure how to tell the group what Ethan wanted her to investigate. And? Tim asked, prompting her. Emma looked at him and said reluctantly, He says his family home is haunted. They looked at her, astonished. Haunted? You mean spirits? Dora asked. Or ghosts? Suggested Jeremy. Is he serious? Dora asked. She didn't believe someone would ask Emma for something like this. Something has put this notion in his head. He's coming over tonight to review the case with us. He'll be here at 8. I think we should hear him out and take him seriously. I don't want him to feel we are making fun of him, Emma warned. Dora said immediately, No, we wouldn't do that. Tim and Jeremy agreed. Emma, Jake spoke up, sounding nervous, are there really ghosts in that house? She reached over to touch his arm. Jake, there hasn't been any scientific or photographic evidence to suggest they exist. He nodded, understanding. Then why are we going to check into it? To show him they aren't real? That's it exactly. But we will listen politely to what he has to say, Emma stated. Yes, we will, he confirmed and lowered his head to read from his book. Dora stood up. I need to check on Lottie. She looked over at Tim. Check on Patrick and see if he's ready to be read to. Tim reached over to take her hand and accompanied her upstairs. They separated at their bedroom door. She entered her bedroom and walked toward the curtain in her room. Since Lottie had been born, they had added a temporary curtain wall to separate their room from hers to allow them some privacy while she slept. It would be a while yet before she got her own room. Tim headed next door to Patrick. He pushed the door open and found him sitting up holding a book. Waiting for me? He asked. Patrick grinned and scooted over so he could join him on the bed. After the kids were all settled, Tim and Dora rejoined Emma and Jeremy and Jake in the sitting room, talking and waiting for Ethan to arrive.